Charles Manson was born to 16-year-old Kathleen Maddox on November 12, 1934. Manson lived a very difficult childhood and didn't have a good relationship with his mother. Manson told people his mother once sold him to a waitress in exchange for a pitcher of beer.
Can I trade you my son for that pitcher of beer?
Why not? Hi.
When Charles was young, his mother and uncle robbed a store and were sentenced to 5 years in prison, and Manson was sent to live with his other family members. Charles was eventually reunited with his mother, but she later rejected him and he was forced to live a life on his own. In 1955, Manson married a hospital worker, and she gave birth to their child, Charles Jr. During the marriage, Manson was sent to prison after stealing a car, and the marriage ended when Manson began pimping a 16-year-old girl. In 1959, Manson was married again and they had a child named Charles Luther, but 4 years later the couple was divorced. Throughout both his first and second marriages, Manson spent a lot of his time in and out of prison. Manson spent a majority of the first 32 years of his life in prison or in private schools that he continuously tried to escape. In 1969, Charles moved in with a librarian named Mary Brunner. Before long, there were 18 women living with them, and they became Manson's first followers.
The Manson family was a quasi-commune formed by Charles Manson and his followers in the late 1960s. The Mansons' first followers were young hippie teenagers who had troubles at home with their families. While these teenagers were struggling at home, Manson found a way out and became a father figure in their lives. The Manson family moved to a place called Spawn Ranch, where they lived as one big happy family. The family didn't start out as a violent group, but they quickly became violent after Manson started looking for control. He began brainwashing the members by giving them LSD and commanding them to do things. The family had taken so much LSD that Manson convinced the group that he was Jesus Christ. He would ask them to prove their love for him and he would throw knives at them. At this point, Manson had control of the entire group. He convinced them there was an apocalyptic war between black people and white people called Helter Skelter. He believed Helter Skelter would destroy the nation, allowing him and the family to become the new leaders of the country. Since Helter Skelter never really started on its own, Manson believed they had to start the war themselves.
The first murder the family committed was in late July of 1969. The victim was a musician named Gary Hinman. Family members Susan Atkins and Bobby Beausoleil entered the house and held Hinman hostage, and Charles Manson showed up 2 days later and cut off Hinman's ear. Beausoleil was the one to murder Hinman, and he stabbed him in the head. Charles never actually murdered anyone, but instead commanded other members to do it.
The Manson family went on to murder more and more people, including pregnant actress Sharon Tate and Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. Both murders were very violent and words were written on the wall with their blood. All of the victims were stabbed dozens of times because that's what Charles wanted to happen.
All of the Manson family murders happened over a span of less than 2 weeks, and investigators couldn't figure out who was committing the crimes. In the next few months, the members of the family were arrested for the theft of a dune buggy and other vehicles, not for the murders. However, while in prison, family member Susan Atkins confessed to her prison mate all of the murders. Her prison mate told police, and Atkins then confessed to sheriffs the crimes the family had done. Warrants for the arrest of 3 family members were sent out. When family member Patricia Krenwinkel found out about the warrant, she voluntarily surrendered to police and told them everything the family had done. Many members were arrested and sent to prison for life with the possibility of parole. Charles Manson remains in prison today, and unlike many other members, he remains unremorseful. Manson's crimes are done, and he will remain in prison until death.